I'm 71. I don't hate people. I just feel better when they're not around. Hello, friends. I'm 71 years old now, and let me tell you, reaching this age has been an eye-opening journey. It's not just the gray hairs, the creaky knees, or the endless doctor appointments, although those do keep life interesting. It's the perspective that changes. You see the world differently. People in particular feel different to me now. I don't hate anyone, but if I'm being honest, I've come to enjoy my own company a lot more these days. I feel lighter, freer, and just plain better when I'm not constantly surrounded by others. I'm sharing this with you because I think many of you might feel the same way. If you're in your late 60s, 70s, or even 80s, perhaps you've noticed this shift too. Let's talk about it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. 1. A lifetime of lessons. A lifetime is a collection of stories, some cherished, others we'd rather forget, but all of them shape who we become. At 71, I often find myself reflecting on those stories, and what stands out most isn't the big milestones like weddings, promotions, or anniversaries. It's the smaller, quieter moments and the lessons they carried. These lessons, learned over decades, have subtly but profoundly changed the way I see people and my place in the world. When I was younger, I believed in the goodness of everyone. I thought that with enough kindness, understanding, and effort, relationships could be nurtured and maintained. But life, as it does, had other plans. I learned the hard way that not everyone shares the same heart, the same intentions, or the same capacity to value what you offer. I've been let down by people I trusted, taken advantage of by those I tried to help, and left wondering how I misjudged situations so badly. But these experiences didn't make me bitter. They made me wiser. They taught me that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every connection is worth keeping. I realized that people come into our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and trying to hold on to someone who was only meant to teach you a lesson is like clinging to a chapter in a book you've already finished. It's painful, but it's necessary to let go. Looking back, I see how much of my energy was spent trying to please others, fit into groups, or meet expectations that weren't truly mine. There were times when I overextended myself, giving and giving until there was nothing left for me. I thought that was what it meant to be a good person, to always put others first. But now I understand that taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's essential. You can't pour from an empty cup, and the best relationships are those where giving is mutual, not one-sided. As I reflect on those years, I'm struck by how much my definition of happiness has changed. When I was younger, happiness was loud. It was laughter at a crowded party, the thrill of a new adventure, or the pride of achieving something big. But now, happiness is quiet. It's sitting on my porch with a cup of tea, watching the sun dip below the horizon. It's the peace of knowing I don't owe anyone my time or energy unless I choose to give it. It's the joy of being fully present in a moment, unbothered by the noise of the world. Life has also taught me the importance of boundaries, a lesson I wish I had learned sooner. Setting boundaries isn't about shutting people out. It's about protecting your space, your peace, and your well-being. It's about knowing your limits and not feeling guilty for saying no. In my earlier years, I thought saying no made me a bad friend, a bad partner, or even a bad person. But now I know it's one of the most loving things you can do, for yourself and for others. Boundaries show respect for your needs and teach others how to respect them too. Time has a way of revealing what really matters. The friendships I hold dear now are fewer, but they are richer. These are the people who have stood by me through storms, celebrated my joys, and accepted me exactly as I am. I no longer feel the need to collect acquaintances or maintain relationships that have run their course. Instead, I treasure the deep, meaningful connections that have weathered the years. They remind me that quality always trumps quantity. What I've learned above all is that life is too precious to spend worrying about who likes you, who doesn't, or who understands your choices. At this age, I don't need everyone to like me. I like me, and that's enough. I've grown comfortable with my own company, and I've come to see solitude not as loneliness, but as a gift. In the quiet, I can hear my own thoughts, dreams, and truths more clearly than ever before. So, no, I don't hate people. Far from it. I've just learned that not everyone belongs in my life, and that's okay. The time I have left is valuable, and I want to spend it on what truly matters: peace, joy, and the simple, profound beauty of just being. 2. The beauty of solitude. There's a unique grace in solitude, one that I never fully appreciated until later in life. When I was younger, the idea of being alone felt almost unbearable. I associated it with loneliness, with a lack of connection or purpose. But now, at 71, I see it differently. Solitude is not a void, it's a space where peace lives. It's where I found myself again after years of being caught up in the noise of the world and the expectations of others. I've come to treasure the quiet. In the stillness, I've learned to listen, not to the voices of others, but to the whisper of my own heart. There's something profoundly healing about sitting with your thoughts, letting them unfold without distraction. The chaos of life fades, and what remains is clarity. It's in those moments of solitude that I've come to understand who I truly am, what I value, and what I need to let go of to feel free. I've realized that the busyness of my younger years was often a way to avoid myself. It's easy to fill your days with obligations, with people, with noise. But when the house is quiet and there's no one else to entertain or impress, you're left with the one person you can never escape: yourself. At first, that realization is unsettling, but with time, it becomes a comfort. In solitude, I've learned to be my own best company. I've discovered the joy of doing things simply because they make me happy, not to please others, not to check a box, but for the sheer delight of it. There's a quiet freedom in solitude that social interactions often lack. When I'm alone, there are no expectations to meet, no roles to play. I don't have to be the caregiver, the friend, the entertainer, or the problem solver. I can simply be. There's no pressure to say the right thing or to anticipate someone else's needs. It's just me, in my natural state, free to exist without pretense. This doesn't mean I've closed myself off to others. I haven't. I still cherish meaningful connections with family and friends, but I approach them differently now. I no longer feel the need to fill every moment with company or conversation. I don't chase after relationships that drain me or engage in social obligations out of guilt. Instead, I choose my interactions carefully, prioritizing depth over quantity. And in between, I retreat into the sanctuary of solitude to recharge, to reflect, and to savor the quiet joys of life. I've also come to see that solitude isn't something to fear. It's a gift. It's in those moments of stillness that I feel most alive, most connected to the world around me. Watching a sunset, hearing the rustle of leaves, or simply sipping a cup of tea in the morning light, these simple acts, when done in solitude, feel sacred. They remind me that life's beauty often lies in its quietest moments, not in the loudness of crowds or the rush of activity. Solitude has taught me to value my own company, to trust my instincts, and to find contentment within myself. It has shown me that I don't need to be surrounded by people to feel whole. In fact, the more I've embraced solitude, the more I've realized how much strength it takes to stand alone, not as a sign of isolation, but as a declaration of independence. At 71, I've stopped worrying about what others might think of my quieter lifestyle. I've stopped apologizing for needing space or for choosing to spend my time differently than I once did. Solitude isn't a rejection of others, it's an embrace of myself. And in a world that constantly demands more, I've found that the greatest gift I can give myself is permission to simply be. 3. Why socializing feels different now. There was a time in my life when socializing felt as natural as breathing. I craved connection, thrived in the company of others, and found joy in the shared laughter and camaraderie of friends, family, and even strangers. But as the years have passed, I've noticed a shift, not just in how I approach social interactions, but in how they make me feel. It's not that I dislike people or that I've closed myself off. It's that the act of socializing feels fundamentally different now, as though the rhythm of connection has changed with age. In my earlier years, socializing was a constant part of life. It was woven into the fabric of my days, from work obligations to family gatherings, from catching up with friends to being an active member of my community. But back then, I rarely stopped to question whether these interactions truly nourished me. I simply went along, believing that being busy and surrounded by people was the hallmark of a fulfilling life. Now, at 71, I see things more clearly. Socializing is no longer about filling my calendar or keeping up appearances. It's about meaningful connections, and those are far more rare than I once thought. Time and experience have taught me that not every conversation is worth having, and not every relationship is worth keeping. There's an emotional toll that comes with superficial exchanges and draining dynamics, and I've grown more protective of my time and energy. As I've aged, I've become more attuned to the nuances of human interaction. I notice things I once overlooked: the subtle manipulations, the insincerities, the unspoken expectations. I've learned to read between the lines, to sense when someone's interest is genuine or merely transactional. And while this awareness has made me more discerning, it's also made socializing more complex. It's harder to approach people with the same unguarded openness I once had, because I've learned through experience that not everyone deserves that level of trust. I've also discovered how much energy socializing requires, energy that I no longer have in endless supply. I think we underestimate the effort it takes to be present in a conversation, to truly listen, to empathize, and to engage. In my younger years, I could do this without thinking, bouncing from one interaction to the next. But now, I find myself needing to conserve my energy, to choose carefully where I invest it. And often, I choose quiet over company, not because I dislike people, but because solitude replenishes me in a way that socializing no longer does. This shift doesn't mean I've abandoned relationships. It means I've redefined them. I no longer feel the need to maintain every connection or attend every event. I've let go of the notion that saying no makes me selfish or unfriendly. Instead, I focus on the relationships that matter most, the ones built on mutual respect, understanding, and love. These are the people who have stood by me through life's ups and downs, who know me as I am and accept me without judgment. They are my true circle, and they make the rare moments of socializing feel meaningful rather than obligatory. I've also learned to find joy in smaller, quieter interactions. A brief chat with a neighbor, a kind exchange with a stranger, or a shared laugh with a family member. These moments, though fleeting, often feel more genuine than hours spent in larger, more formal gatherings. They remind me that connection doesn't have to be grand or elaborate. Sometimes, the simplest interactions are the most profound. Socializing now is less about quantity and more about quality. I no longer seek to fill my days with people. Instead, I look for depth in the connections I do have. It's a quieter, more intentional way of relating to others, and it feels truer to who I am at this stage of my life. At 71, I've come to terms with the fact that not everyone will understand this change. Some may see it as withdrawing, as becoming less involved or less available, but I see it as an evolution, a natural part of aging and growing into myself. Socializing may feel different now, but that difference has brought with it a greater sense of peace, purpose, and authenticity. And for that, I am deeply grateful. 4. Trust changes over time. Trust is one of the most fragile yet essential elements of life. When we're young, it comes naturally. We extend it freely, believing in the goodness of others, assuming that most people will treat us with the same kindness and honesty we offer them. But as the years pass, life teaches us that trust is both precious and precarious. At 71, I understand this lesson in a way I never could when I was younger. Trust hasn't disappeared from my life, but it's transformed, becoming more deliberate, more guarded, and more deeply valued. The journey to this understanding hasn't been easy. I've had my share of betrayals, disappointments, and heartbreaks. Friends I thought would stand by me faded away when life got hard. Promises were broken, and people I trusted revealed sides of themselves I never expected to see. These experiences weren't unique to me. They're part of the human condition. But each one left a mark, a subtle reminder that trust, once lost, is rarely regained in full. Over time, I began to see patterns. The more I trusted indiscriminately, the more vulnerable I became to those who didn't have my best interests at heart. It wasn't about malice on their part necessarily. Sometimes it was simply thoughtlessness or selfishness. But regardless of the cause, the result was the same: a wound to my faith in others. These experiences taught me to be more discerning. I no longer give my trust freely. It has to be earned. This doesn't mean I assume the worst of people, but I've learned to wait and watch, to let their actions reveal their character before I open my heart fully. It's a slower process, but it's also a safer one, and it allows me to build relationships on a foundation of mutual respect and authenticity. I've also come to understand that not everyone is capable of meeting the same standard of trustworthiness. This isn't a judgment, it's an observation. Some people, for whatever reason, struggle to be consistent, reliable, or honest. Others may have good intentions, but lack the emotional tools to follow through. Recognizing this has helped me let go of resentment and instead focus on surrounding myself with those who align with my values and reciprocate my efforts. At this stage in my life, I no longer seek trust from everyone. Instead, I've cultivated a small circle of people who have proven themselves over time. These relationships are my safe harbor, the places where I can be vulnerable without fear. They remind me that while trust can be fragile, it is also incredibly resilient when nurtured with care and understanding. But even within this circle, I've learned to balance trust with self reliance. Life has shown me that ultimately, the person I can count on most is myself. This doesn't mean I've closed myself off from others. It means I've developed an inner strength that allows me to weather disappointments without becoming bitter or broken. Trusting myself has been one of the greatest gifts of aging, and it's something I wish I had embraced sooner. Trust also looks different now because my priorities have shifted. I no longer feel the need to place my faith in everyone I meet. I don't feel obligated to maintain relationships that don't serve me or to give second chances to those who have proven they don't deserve them. This isn't about being unforgiving. It's about protecting my peace. My time is limited, and I choose to spend it with people who enrich my life, not those who drain it. At 71, I've come to see trust as a delicate but powerful thread that connects us to others. It's not something to be taken lightly or given without thought. Instead, it's a gift we offer carefully, knowing its value and respecting its fragility. And while the journey to this understanding has been fraught with challenges, I wouldn't trade the wisdom I've gained for anything. In the end, trust changes because we change. We grow, we learn, and we adapt. And as our understanding deepens, so too does our ability to navigate the complexities of relationships with grace and clarity. Trust may be harder to give now, but when it's earned, it feels all the more meaningful. A reminder that even in a world filled with uncertainty, there's still room for connection, honesty, and hope. 5. The pandemic's impact: embracing stillness in a chaotic world. The pandemic was a turning point for all of us, a moment in history that forced the world to slow down and take stock of itself. For me, at 71, it felt like a paradoxical gift wrapped in uncertainty and loss. As the world grew quieter, I began to hear my own thoughts more clearly. In the stillness, I found an unexpected kind of clarity, a chance to reevaluate what mattered most to me and to rethink how I wanted to spend the rest of my life. Before the pandemic, life was often a blur of activity. Even in retirement, there were routines, obligations, and the ever-present hum of busyness that seemed to define modern life. There was always something to do, somewhere to go, someone to see. But when the world shut down, all of that came to a halt. At first, it was unsettling. Quiet felt unnatural, like an emptiness I didn't know how to fill. But as the days stretched into weeks and months, I began to see the beauty in the stillness. I started to notice things I had overlooked for years. The way the sunlight shifted across my living room floor, the rhythm of the birdsong outside my window, the sound of my own breathing as I sat alone with my thoughts. These small, simple moments became a source of comfort, a reminder that life's beauty often lies in its quietest corners. The constant noise of the world, its demands, its distractions, had been silenced, and in that silence, I found a sense of peace I hadn't realized I was missing. The pandemic also changed the way I viewed my relationships. With social distancing and lockdowns in place, I couldn't rely on the usual forms of connection: family gatherings, casual visits with friends, or even a friendly chat at the grocery store. At first, this isolation felt like a loss, a void where connection used to be. But over time, I began to see it differently. It wasn't that I didn't miss people. I did, but I also realized that I didn't need constant interaction to feel connected. Instead, I learned to value the deeper, more intentional relationships in my life. A phone call with a dear friend, a letter from a loved one, or a quiet moment of prayer became profound sources of connection. These moments felt more meaningful than the surface level interactions I had often relied on before. The pandemic stripped away the noise and left behind what truly mattered: authenticity, sincerity, and love. One of the most surprising lessons of that time was how much I enjoyed my own company. Before the pandemic, I might have avoided solitude out of habit or fear of loneliness. But being alone during those long months forced me to confront myself in ways I hadn't before. I realized that I didn't need to be surrounded by others to feel whole. I could find joy in my own presence, in my own thoughts, and in the simple pleasures of daily life. This newfound appreciation for solitude also reshaped my relationship with the outside world. I no longer felt the pressure to say yes to every invitation or to fill my days with activity for the sake of staying busy. Instead, I embraced the freedom to choose how I spent my time and with whom. I became more selective, more intentional, and ultimately more at peace. The pandemic, for all its challenges and heartbreak, gave me a gift I never expected: chance to slow down and truly see my life for what it is. It reminded me that the pace of the world doesn't have to dictate the pace of my heart. I can choose stillness. I can choose simplicity. And in doing so, I can find a deeper sense of fulfillment than I ever thought possible. Now, as the world moves forward, I carry those lessons with me. The pandemic may have forced us apart, but it also brought me closer to myself. It taught me to find joy in the quiet, to cherish the relationships that truly matter, and to embrace the stillness that so often goes unnoticed in a busy world. In that way, it was not just a time of loss, but a time of profound discovery, a chance to reimagine what it means to live a life of meaning, connection, and peace. 6. Rediscovering what matters. A journey to simplicity and fulfillment. As I've grown older, I've come to understand that life is not about chasing after every fleeting desire or filling our days with endless activity. Instead, it's about appreciating what truly matters and letting go of everything that doesn't. This realization didn't come all at once. It was a gradual awakening, shaped by years of reflection, mistakes, and the quiet wisdom that only time can bring. In my younger years, my world felt endlessly busy. I was caught in the whirlwind of obligations: raising children, building a career, tending to relationships, and trying to meet expectations that often felt overwhelming. I believed that productivity equaled purpose and busyness equaled success. But as the years passed, I began to see the cracks in that mindset. All too often, I sacrificed my own peace and happiness in the pursuit of things that, in hindsight, held little meaning. Now at 71, I see life with clearer eyes. The things that matter most aren't tied to possessions, accolades, or packed schedules. They're the simple, everyday moments that bring joy and connection. It's the warmth of a hug from a grandchild, the way sunlight streams through a window in the early morning, the taste of a favorite meal cooked with care. These moments, though small, are profound. They remind me of the beauty that exists in the present and the richness of a life lived with intention. Part of rediscovering what matters has been learning to let go of people, expectations, and even parts of myself that no longer align with who I've become. There's a kind of grief in releasing old versions of yourself, but there's also incredible freedom. I no longer feel the need to prove myself or to keep up with anyone else's idea of success. My days are no longer defined by how much I accomplish or how many people I please, but by how present and fulfilled I feel. This simplicity has also reshaped my relationships. I no longer cling to connections that feel forced or one-sided. Instead, I focus on the people who genuinely enrich my life, the ones who understand me, accept me, and bring light into my world. These relationships are fewer but deeper, and they remind me that it's the quality of our connections, not the quantity, that truly matters. 7. Is this normal? Finding peace in the natural flow of aging. As I've embraced this quieter, simpler way of living, I've often wondered if others feel the same way. Is it normal to crave solitude, to grow more selective in relationships, to prioritize peace over productivity? The answer I've found is yes. Aging brings with it a natural shift in perspective, one that many of us share but rarely speak about. In our younger years, life often feels like a race. There's so much to do, so much to achieve, so many people to meet and impress. But as we age, the race slows, and we begin to realize that not every finish line is worth crossing. We start to see the value in pausing, in stepping off the track altogether, and in simply being. This shift can feel unsettling at first. The world tells us that we should stay busy, stay social, stay involved, even as we grow older. But what the world doesn't often tell us is that it's okay to change. It's okay to let go of the expectations you once carried and to create a life that feels truer to who you are now. This isn't giving up, it's growing into yourself. What I've learned is that this stage of life is an invitation to live more authentically. It's a chance to strip away the noise and distractions and to focus on what really matters. It's not about withdrawing from the world, but about engaging with it on your own terms. And while this may look different for everyone, the underlying truth is universal. As we age, we become more attuned to our own needs, more accepting of our own limitations, and more aware of the beauty in the present moment. A life of clarity and contentment. As I sit with the reflections of a life well lived, I find myself filled with a sense of peace, not from having all the answers, but from finally understanding the questions. What truly matters? What brings joy and fulfillment? The answers are not in the noise of busyness or the endless pursuit of more, but in the quiet simplicity of being present with what is. Aging has a way of stripping away the unnecessary, leaving only what is essential. It teaches us to appreciate the moments we once took for granted, the warmth of the morning sun, the comfort of a familiar routine, the gentle presence of those who truly care. These small but profound gifts are what make life rich, not the distractions we once thought were so important. At this stage, I've let go of the need to prove myself, to meet expectations that no longer serve me. I've stopped chasing things that never truly mattered and instead embraced what's already here. This clarity has brought a contentment that feels deeply grounding. Life, in its imperfect beauty, is enough. For those walking this path with me, I encourage you to lean into this season of life. Embrace the lessons it offers, the peace it can bring, and the love that still surrounds you. There is no right or wrong way to live this chapter, only your way, shaped by the wisdom you've earned and the truths you hold dear. As I look ahead, I don't worry about what's to come. Instead, I trust that the same clarity and grace that have guided me this far will continue to lead the way. Life may slow down, but its richness deepens, and in that, I find more than enough. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.